Dr. Colkin, I'm not sure which one of you to ask this question of, but I'm going to start with you. And the assertion was made earlier by the ranking member that if we just would focus on climate change and its causes, this problem would go away. He might be right, but it's going to take quite a while. How long?
Well, I mean, climate change is certainly a significant component of what is happening and why these fires are so much more severe, but also is 100 years of suppression. We've made fire go away from our landscapes that were designed with fire. Native Americans burned these landscapes regularly and consistently, and we've excluded fire, and so there's a deficit that's come due. I think, we are going to have a tough next 20 years, 30 years. When I look at these largest, most complex wildland fires, the only thing that seems to stop them, well, there's two things that stop them: major changes in weather and past large fires. So basically, our success in these large wildland fires comes from our past failures. Those are the only things that stop these most problematic fires.
I think in listening to forestry experts from Oregon State, I'm from Oregon, the assertion was that our future of hotter, drier is, quote, their words, baked in for the next 30 to 40 years, even if we stopped creating CO2 tomorrow. And so this assertion that we have misdirected our attention in the FOFA bill, I believe is incorrect, because we have to adapt to a situation that we know is going to continue for perhaps another half century, and I would guess longer. But you are pointing out what should be done, and I think the FOFA bill addresses that. Am I correct?
There are absolutely positive reforms that are needed. NEPA is problematic, it's time-consuming. But if we want to protect our communities, we start at the community. We start at the home, and we start at the adjacent lands. We also have that fire deficit on our public lands that we need to address, and those are different strategies. My research is really focused on how we use our fuels management to make firefighting more successful. And firefighting is stopping those problematic fires as they come out of the wildlands into communities. And it's also safely getting more fire into our wildlands. I think one of the most important things is more fire comes from private land onto federal land than federal land to private land. The devastation comes when it gets into the communities, but for the most part, ignitions happen on, problematic ignitions do not happen on federal land that often.
They happen. Let me move to Mr. Gordon just briefly. I want to shift over to affordability because that certainly is an issue that people are talking about. And I want to talk about how unaffordable insurance has become in areas that can't get their act together and start driving it down, as you repeatedly suggested they should. And I think, of course, the FOFA bill would help us do that. But I'm just looking at these numbers here. It appears that in California, in fire-prone areas, rates have gone up 300 to 500%, up to $6,000 a year in some cases. Are these numbers correct?
Well, I think those numbers may be anecdotal. They're certainly not averages, and in fact, California has some of the lower overall insurance rates. What we are seeing is the primary driver for insurance costs is simply building inflation. It's the inflation in building labor and materials that skyrocketed after the pandemic. And then people are building more expensive buildings in the wildland-urban interface. So there is a climate element, but the primary cost driver is the inflation and the rapid development in places like California, places like Oregon. If we're going to build there, you need to address the forest management.
We do. I'm not disputing that one bit. What I'm trying to say is, in order to get something done when it comes to preventing these fires, we need to get people together, and the FOFA bill would help encourage that. That's what I've heard. Do I have that correct?
Absolutely, that's
and
correct.
If an individual wants to go in and drive down their own rate, just taking care of themselves by themselves will not work. You've already said that. I agree with that completely.
Yes.
So the FOFA bill is one of the few ways that I've seen around here where we could immediately address affordability. If we could get it passed, if the Senate would get busy and pass it, then we could do something positive to bring these people together. Is that correct?
That is correct, and it would be a significant help.
And again, going back to affordability, $500 a month is what a $6,000 policy would cost. And I understand the increased the cost of housing, but I would blame our lack of adaptation. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.